comfort, health, happiness. These are the things sacrificed to poverty. These were the things sacrificed by 2.3 out of the 3.4 million people living in New York City by 1900. That's 2/3 of the population enduring this suffocating tenement way of life.
Men, women, and children would work for hours in the depths of the factories. There were even cases of children who never saw the sun because they would end their night shift by passing out in musty dens by the time the sun came up. The workers had no escape from the discomfort their poverty caused. Both the workplace and tenements were cramped and overcrowded. Landlords would pack up to 20 people into 12 by 13-foot rooms. With restricted airflow, the buildup of an unbearable stench made breathing difficult. It was rare that you had access to a window, but even if you did, the pollution and waste outside was no better. The conditions were bad, but became even worse in the summer. Temperatures inside could reach up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. This even made living beside the festering mounds of waste on the streets more preferable. When winter returned again, the streets became a death sentence. During this time, the poorest had to settle in the 5-cent lodges, which consisted of a grimy corner of the floor. Some preferred to spend rent money to indulge in saloons, and often ended the night stumbling around in the alleys.
The beer there, old and diluted with polluted water, would usually be touched up with drugs to provide the illusion of carbonated freshness. The floors of the dives would be made of hard-packed mud or old wooden boards covered in a brown crust that harbored crawling bugs and gooey black filth, providing a free bed for any passed-out drunkard.
It was frequent that they were woken up by hungry rats nibbling at their exposed skin. But alcohol wouldn't always provide enough of an escape, and suicide became more frequent and appealing to the tenants. The discomfort during 1900 pushed people off the ledge, but suicide wasn't even the main cause of mortality.
For the countless families who could only afford the dark closets that passed for rooms in the rear tenements, death was certainly no stranger. Babies made up the majority of deaths, making the fact that only 3 in 10 survived to 5 years old nothing to wonder at. The wonder was, rather, that any survived at all. They were born into the foul tenement air and to parents that are already trying to feed 4 other children. Musty bread, pickles, and semi-rancid meat was their staple diet. Their water came from just one pump shared between all the people of a tenement and was often contaminated and as unreliable as a tenant straw, meaning bathing was a special event and disease spread like wildfire from room to crowded room. Malnourished and vulnerable, children were usually the first to go when disease struck. When the children of the tenements weren't working or sleeping, they were outside. The back alleys and tenement yards were their playgrounds, and also breeding grounds of disease and infection. In the square tenement yard lies a cesspool, a literal pit where not only the tenement's trash is dumped, but also their bodily waste. As rear tenements invaded the precious little open spaces that were left, sunlight and breathing room became a privilege. The only fresh breeze that could be felt through a rear tenement window would come from a back alley, the narrow space that separated a rear and street-facing tenement. The floors of these back alleys were filled with all the waste of a cesspool and saw only minutes of sunlight a day. It was in these alleys that children spent their days and the homeless spent their nights. While federal laws applied to factories, like a 10-hour workday maximum, an unofficial mini-factory inside of a tenement could be completely unregulated, meaning no mandatory dinner break or fire safety and sanitary standards. The tenant would come home from their 10-hour workday at a factory just to pick right back up again inside of the tenement they live in, extending their workday up to 18 hours, just to provide some standard of living for children who are probably going to die anyway. Many mothers embraced this blunt logic. Some mothers resorted to selling their infants to baby farms under the assumption it would be cared for and maybe adopted. However, the farms often kept the mother's money for themselves, letting the babies starve and die while still collecting payments for the baby's care. If the mother ever asks you the baby, they just say it's been adopted and that's the end of it.
The tenements that had once dominated big cities like Chicago and New York now cease to exist, but poverty remains. There is no denying that poverty in 1900 differs from modern poverty, but today, people still struggle to find jobs and even food. We are lucky to have work regulations, including minimum wage and the standard workday for salary workers, but these were only introduced as a result of the tenement age. These changes helped to bring the U.S. out of the Gilded Age, but regardless, poverty persisted. Someone could be working multiple jobs for just enough money to sustain life, and others may be resorting to dumpster diving because what they earned just wasn't enough. Poverty is everywhere and has always managed to survive through generations.